Hey everyone, it's Tyler Esselman.
And Michael Osinski.
And you are listening to This One Goes to 11.
This One Goes to 11, the podcast where we invite someone to share a perfect album with us.
So perfect, in fact, Michael, that 10 out of 10 just isn't good enough.
No, it ain't.
It ain't indeed. What a fine day that we have, to get a little peek behind the curtain to anyone out there that's listening. This is our second recording of the day. We love when that happens. And it's all a little bit of time travel based on when this is going to come out. And I have like equations written on the window, like in A Beautiful Mind. So
I was going to say, we got some Beautiful Mind thing going on here.
Yeah, like zoom, like I'm zooming through like wormholes in my head.
Careful, Russell Crowe's a little unstable. I don't know if that's the role model you want in your life, Tyler.
All right, this is good to know. I need to know about my boy Russ. Big Russ.
Big Russ.
Big Russ, as I call him.
The big RC.
Yeah, the big RC.
After him.
God damn it,
all right,
Michael.
Okay.
We're talking about an album today that is utterly ridiculous, and I cannot wait to get into it. Michael, who are we talking to about that album?
We are talking to Eli Mandel. Eli is a writer, actor, and comedian who has worked for Saturday Night Live, The New Yorker, and Gildan Underpants. And he's right here with us in the Zoom room. Hi, Eli.
What's up?
Best bio yet.
To a peek behind the curtain. The reason I include that is because Tyler and we met doing a commercial for Gildan Underpants probably 8 years ago.
I think it's 8 years ago now. Yeah. And
when I wasn't horrifically ashamed of my body.
That's the last 8 years have done that to us.
Yeah.
They've ruined our sense of self and our sense of confidence. But it was a fine day of work, wasn't it? I credit to the people at The Onion because man, they treated us well.
Yes, absolutely.
What was that other guy's name? I can't remember his name. You saw him around sometimes, right?
Miguel, yeah. He was in the improv community. I saw, right, Miguel? I'm going to feel bad if it's not. But I think it is. I saw him in a show recently. I was like watching Station 11, and he was in there. I was like, oh my God, that's cool.
Oh, yeah.
And then I was in Chicago recently, and I also ran into him. And then not that long after, you reached out, and I was like, oh my God, this Gildan underwear parody commercial that we did for Onion Labs. It has a life. It has a life of its own.
It's really hatched an expanded universe. We could start an IP off of this probably.
Yes.
So
I'd like to say there was a plan for us all to just be wearing Gildan underpants for this episode. But I would like to point out that Amazon did not have them in my size, so I was not able to even procure them.
You really want it. I'm wearing mine right now. I'm wearing the pair of tidy whities that they gave me, and they're my laundry underwear. So that's why they've lasted as long as they have, people. So don't get this. So they only see action like maybe once every 3 weeks or something like that.
I definitely still have like the good pair that they sent me because the bit of the commercial was that was 3 guys try on their dad's underwear.
Yeah.
And it's us in tidy whities, and then we're talking about them. But then I somehow procured like a pair of their good underwear, and it's pretty comfortable, I gotta say.
Yeah, I'm a believer. And yes, Michael, I do my laundry more often than that. It's just only sometimes do I run out to the point where I have to use this pair of underwear. I'm not a tidy whities guy.
It's like this is how well we know each other now. You knew that's what I was about to say when you mentioned 3 weeks for doing laundry.
I fucking knew. Well, I'm certainly glad the stars aligned for us to do this, and I'm really excited to hear what angle you're going to take with this album that you have chosen. All of the albums that you chose were absolutely unhinged, and so this was the one that we wanted to hear most about. Eli, tell us, what album hath thou brought before This One Goes to 11 tribunal today?
I have brought So Much for the Afterglow by Everclear. I am a little confused why you're saying that it's unhinged because it is a perfect album.
This is the angle I want you to take. That's exactly what I want. I mean, I know Everclear. I think most people know Everclear. So you probably know that band. But if you don't, we have a very convenient segment that will help you get up to date on a little bit of who this band is and the context for this album. Michael, what is that segment called?
That segment is called The Beginner's Guide to Everclear's So Much for the Afterglow in 60 Seconds.
And I'm doing this one. I'm feeling pretty good about this one, actually. This one it's a little literary, which I hope you'll appreciate. Eli.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
I don't know. That might be overstating it, and I'm okay overstating it. That's who I am.
Eli, you get to evaluate his case too. So like we used to do points around here, and while we've taken the points away, we still give our guests the ability to evaluate our case.
Yeah.
So
I gotta say, though I love this album and I have listened to this album 1 million times, I don't necessarily know a ton of info about Everclear the band.
Great.
It's not. I have deep knowledge of. I'll talk about that.
That's
later,
all you
whatever.
need for. That's all you need for this pod. Is you need to. All you need to know is why this album is perfect.
Perfect.
But we'll just fill in the corners of the painting, if you will, a little bit.
All right. The Everclear heads are like screaming into their phone right now.
They're leaning back. They're sitting back, crossing their arms. They're like, "All right, impress me. I'm ready."
All right, I got a minute on the clock. You ready, Tyler?
I'm ready.
3, 2, 1, go.
If you've ever listened to a radio station that builds itself as a purveyor of modern rock, then you have almost certainly heard of Everclear. Founded in Portland, Oregon, with Art Alexakis at its helm, alongside Craig Montoya on bass and Greg Eklund on drums, Everclear was born of Alexakis and his family moving to the Pacific Northwest for a fresh start after many years of stuttering starts at making a livelihood in music in his native Los Angeles and then San Francisco. After linking up with Montoya and Eklund, the group scraped together the equipment and studio time to get some songs put down, pouring into the stew pot a mixture of rock influences from old school pop to punk, and the word cowpunk can be found in reference to them at least once. This resulted in an alternative guitar-centric sound that fit rather well into the popular rock current of the mid-90s. So much for the Afterglow. Their third full-length resuscitated the band from a sluggish period following their second album, Sparkle and Fade. Featuring some of their most enduring tracks, including the iconic Father of Mine, it charted and got certified gold, but the band never quite reached those heights of critical and commercial heights again. Nevertheless, Alexakis, in recent years diagnosed with MS, continues to ride the wave as Everclear. Last line. Touring extensively and keeping the dream alive. Wonder what his dad would think of that.
Great job.
All right, Eli. Any rubric you want to use to evaluate that? Any Montessori-esque feedback for our dear boy here?
Incredible. I honestly learned a lot. Most notably, an MS diagnosis. That this is me getting that news for the first time.
I'm glad
I had no idea. But honestly, once again, not knowing a ton about the history of the band, which I'm now not super embarrassed about, but that trajectory makes so much sense when you listen to like the words of the songs, especially on this album, because he talks about obviously LA a lot. He talks about there's a San Francisco reference in there as well that I was like, okay. And I guess I knew that they were like a Portland band technically, but anyway, great job. Informative for both listeners and speakers on the pod.
Perfect. That's what we want. Okay, so before we get more into that portrait of this band, and they are weird as hell, and I'm excited to share some of the stuff that I've learned. We want to hear about you, dude. We want to hear a little bit more about what your relationship with music is writ large.
I mean, it's I would say exceptionally important to me, to my family, to like everyone in my circle. I come from a very rural part of California where my dad was like kind of a amateur blues musician. Like he left home out of high school, like started riding the rails, trying to find these blues heroes of his. I grew up like with a bunch of hippies. So like every party, all the old people break out like guitars and stuff and start singing around the fire. So that's one aspect of it. But then the biggest influence by far with a bullet are the Beatles. Like my mom is a Beatles freak. My aunt, her twin sister, they're both Beatles freaks. So like I basically only knew Beatles songs until I was probably 12 or 13. But it was like that thing in the car. We had all the CDs, all the tapes. We'd listen to it in the car. My mom would quiz us like who's singing, what song's next, like while we're in it. The Beatles are like, I don't know, the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, I guess.
Yeah, they're the Trinity, baby.
Yeah, the Trinity. Yeah. And I know I said I wasn't going to get religious on the pod, but I just had to.
Do it.
Yeah, and so up until I was probably like 12 or 13, about the time I started listening, like my sister started getting into other music, which I'll get to into a little bit. And then around that time, I also discovered Weezer, which was like, it felt like, oh, it's like the Beatles. And I would have done Pinkerton, but you guys already did Pinkerton. So great episode. But
we might have some questions for you about Weezer later on. But
okay,
continue.
Yes. I got answers, baby. Yeah. So I'm like a little bit embarrassed because I like know so much about like, I'm definitely the type of person that like, if I say I like something, I'm so afraid of being called a poser that I have to learn every single thing about that band or whatever. I have a lot of knowledge about the Beatles. I have a lot of knowledge about Weezer. Like, anyway, so other side, I play the banjo.
Do you really?
I'm not great. I got a band, my aunt, because another influence was like folk music. So all those old hippies were playing folk music. Pete Seeger was a huge influence. And so around like when I was in college, I was like, I think I want to play the banjo because I was getting we listened to Pete Seeger a lot growing up, but I was like delving into like Pete Seeger stuff and like Weavers and like 30s through 60s like folk music and folk music revival stuff.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. So then I started, my aunt got me a tenor banjo. I kind of taught myself on the internet a little bit how to play that. And then I was in a touring Shakespeare company in college, and we earned like, I think $30 a show. So with the money that I made with that, I bought myself and I was playing like the tenor banjo in the show.
Of course.
Yeah. And with the
money
I made, baby. Exactly. Yes. And you better believe that's still on whatever resume I use if ever I need to use it.
Yeah.
And then money I made with that, I bought a 5-string banjo and like kind of taught myself to play 5-string banjo. Yeah, but then all the while it's like an explosion and an expansion of like music. Also, like I feel like, I don't know if you guys can relate, but post 30, I think that every white guy takes on like some sort of hipster activity, and vinyl was definitely like my big like hipster activity.
Good.
Over pandemic, I like fixed up a like old 1950s German record player. It's like,
no shit.
Just am I right? It's pretty cool.
So you're in like Wes Anderson territory.
Yeah, a little bit. Yes, definitely with that. And then more recently, I'm like, well, let me like. It's also super old and doesn't sound like incredible, and it's kind of slow. So then more recently, I bought like a better turntable. And then that's like kind of expanded my horizons there a bit of like, okay, like now I need to actually focus on like whether it's a good copy of this album or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I need it to not sound like crud.
There are levels to that because like you are, I think what's amazing is that you're definitely not alone in this sort of like hard media revival that I see among like a lot of people. And I think for me, it's largely a reaction to streaming, right? Where I'm like, I don't know. I was just talking to Michael about this earlier today. I'm working on completing my Twin Peaks viewing.
Yeah.
I've seen little bits and pieces over the years, and I'm probably like, you cobble it together, I've seen the whole thing, but I can't find it streaming anywhere. Is it like Paramount Plus or something like that? Or I don't know. So I was just like, well, I'm just going to buy it because I might as well have it. And I think we'll probably start to see more of that in the coming years when we really figure out what streaming is doing to our access.
Totally. And it is also, especially with like older music, that's like, they made it in order for it to be heard like that. Like if,
that's true.
Like they got it so that you could listen to all the songs like in a row, or I guess play it on the radio. I don't know. But so I like that. And I like the album, like that's why I like this podcast. Cause it's like about albums and how albums, like, I don't know, like you can be a perfect album without having like perfect songs on it, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a good take. That's a specific take. I'm trying to think of a good example of that. And this might be the example of that, honestly. Depending on the case you made, the Everclear album might be.
Well, I actually do think every song on that is perfect. But no, but I mean I feel like something like Sgt. Pepper or whatever, where it is like there's some songs that if it comes on my shuffle, I like will like being for the benefit of Mr. Kai, awesome song. But if it comes on shuffle, I'm probably not like
okay. So this is just the skips question. We're talking about skips here
a little bit. But if I'm listening to the album, I would never skip that song. Like it's because it's so integral to the rest, to everything that comes after it. You know,
good distinction.
Yeah,
important distinction.
Thank you.
That makes sense. Yeah. Well, we're talking about discovering albums and whatnot. We were talking about hard media. So why don't we pivot into like how you discovered this album? Like, was it, did you actually buy the CD? Was there something involving album art? Did someone introduce it to you? Like, how did this album come into your life?
Okay. This album came into my life as a lot of things musically did that were not the Beatles, through my older sister. And I feel like this is just if you have an older sibling, almost all of your music at a young age comes filtered through them.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So this, for a while, the big distinction with Everclear was that was the first band that I ever heard my sister say, "This is my favorite band." And so have since then been like, well, they're great. It's they're my sister's favorite band. And so, and she would have the CD. And another early memory of this is we would listen to it because we wanted to find swear words. Like there's the song Amphetamine is like, first of all, I think about it like a child prostitute, and they say fuck at some point, and I was like, oh my, and we would like fast forward, we would like skip to that song so we could hear it and go like, no, they do say it. It's just right there. Yeah.
Right. They do it out in the open. They didn't have to hide it at all.
Exactly. And so that was the prevailing thing. And then I think that I had burned her copy. And in high school, once I got into high school, I had like, a Walkman, and I had an hour-long bus ride. And so that's how I got really into Weezer as well, was like I borrowed my sister's Weezer album, listened to it twice, once on the way to school, once on the way home. And I did it with this album a lot. And it also, by the time I got into high school, this album was already nostalgic for me because it came out in 97, 98.
97.
And I started high school in 2003 or 4. And it was 5 years ago, but I'm like, man, remember when we were young and we were just listening to this music?
Yeah.
Because there were always bands like this that were like, oh, that's what like the cool older alt kids like list, like Everclear and Beck and like
Sugar Ray.
Yeah, Sugar Ray. Like that, there is a sound to me that is just like puts me back in like 5th or 6th or 7th grade, and hearing like the older kids listen to like hard music. That was Astro Lounge was another one that was on my list. Smash Mouth's Astro Lounge, because that was another album that was like my favorite. Like, unless I took it off, I can't remember what I ultimately.
I think
said.
it was. I think it was
on there. No Smash
Mouth.
I would like to point out for our future guests that Eli is doing something very intelligent here, which is thus far he has managed to drop the name of 3 of the albums on his list, including ones that we did not choose. So future guests learn from Eli in terms of how you can talk about everything you put on your list.
Exactly. I have a big whiteboard behind the camera here that I'm just like going like, okay, what else did I want to talk about? How else can I let people know I'm cool? So very nostalgic, and then in high school, and then at some point I uploaded it onto like my iPod, and then would listen to it mostly through just shuffling all my songs on my thing, and then like an Everclear song would come up and I go like, oh yeah.
Was your cohort also listening to Everclear specifically, or were you like you were the odd man out?
I think I was the odd man out. Like most of my friends were like into like hip like in high school, like I guess there was kind of like an alt music revival or an indie music thing, like Modest Mouse and all that. Like
you were probably on the front end of the Modest Mouse sort of wave, right? 03, 04 seems like early Modest Mouse.
That's was definitely another band that my older sister like listened to. So like I would get some tracks that she had downloaded from LimeWire on that.
There we go.
Yeah,
love an invocation of LimeWire whenever it comes up. It's just great.
I mean, is it with everyone my or our age? Does just about everyone mention LimeWire or Napster?
Pretty much.
Yeah. LimeWire and Napster come up, and then people who are my age often mention BMG and Columbia House.
Oh wow!
As being like the source of most of their CD collection. So you were not the first to drop the LimeWire name.
Yeah, I remember it just took so long, right?
Yes.
Like LimeWire, like God, you on dial-up internet. I never even did it on my family's computer, I would always do it at a friend's house.
Yeah.
We'd be sitting there for hours while fucking, Godsmack downloaded.
Well, it's a Godsmack song, but it says it's Offspring on the title.
I think that happened to a lot. I think I probably listened to a lot of songs thinking they're the absolutely
totally. I remember there was like I can't remember who it was. Although maybe, as I think back, maybe it was Radiohead, but there was like a live Rhinestone Cowboy cover, and
that was them.
What? Okay, all right. Well, then I take it back.
Yeah. I don't know if I know you might just have blown my mind with that one, because I don't know if I know about that one. Was that a Bridge School benefit thing?
I don't even know where it came from, but I do know they did cover Rhinestone Cowboy.
That's rad.
But like once or twice, and someone like recorded that on decent recording equipment, and so someone still got it. I don't think I have. I probably had burned it to like a CD at one point. I don't think I have it anymore.
I think I do have it on my hard drive still. Like,
okay,
it's still in my iTunes someplace. But
I might need to mail you a thumb drive so that you can put that on the thumb drive and then send it back to me. This reminds me of one of my favorite Radiohead like bits is how for years True Love Waits was just the live version of it, right? Michael, wasn't it? It was that one and How I Made My Millions that both only had live versions for years, and then True Love Waits came out on Moonshaped Pool. That was
like studio version.
Yeah, it was a really gratifying thing. You really feel like to what you were saying about kind of like feeling like you have to dive in and know all of the B-sides and know every, like leave no stone unturned in terms of all the rarities that they have. That was a very gratifying moment.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I mean, it was, just quickly about the Weezer thing, because I am a huge Weezer fan, but the reason I got into it, because I liked the Green Album when it came out, and I was like, oh, this is great. And I remember I was taking guitar lessons at the time, and I went to Guitar Center and bought the Green Album guitar book so that my guitar teacher could teach it to me. And then a couple of years later in high school, we were doing like a name that tune game with our math teacher, and he played a song and no one got it, and he was like, that was Weezer, guys. And I was like, oh, I love Weezer. And then I went home and borrowed my sister's like Blue Album CD and listened to it every day for a year, basically. And then did the same thing with Pinkerton after that.
Hell yeah.
So would you put Weezer and Everclear in the same box?
No.
Notice how I did not define box for you.
Yeah, no, you did. And I was trying to think of like, how big of a box?
Yeah.
I think that they are very different. I think that you could describe them both as like alternative rock, like 90s alternative rock. But to me, Everclear had a little bit more of an edge to it. Weezer's off, like, especially in the 90s, was singing about like, I guess they're both singing about being weird and outcasts. But like Weezer was a little bit more poppy, and they also both have Beach Boy influences now that I think about it. Maybe they're more similar, but to me, Everclear was always like, man, he's talking about real shit. Like, he's talking about like life, dude.
To what you may not know about him, I mean, he had a rough upbringing, like significant substance abuse as a kid.
Jesus.
and really hard, and he's been clean clean and sober for like 30 plus years now. And like it was definitely one of those upbringings. I mean, there's the line in Father of Mine about being like the lonely white kid in the black neighborhood, which is a little cringe when you hear it now, but you're like,
well, that song specifically, I mean, I don't know if we want to get too much into the album right now, but it is like listening to it, especially like revisiting it in high school, because my parents got divorced when I was 10, and like, and my dad like was away, and so I didn't really have a relationship with him for a long time, and, or ever, I guess. But but there were lines where I'm just like, yes, that's me. Like I was 10 years old doing all that I could. I'm like, that's so me. And it wasn't easy for me to be a scared white boy in a black neighborhood. I'm like, not that part, but this was so close to being exactly my story.
Like 80%. That's I think that's probably some of this power, right? Is it feels like it makes that sort of big, bold, dramatic emotion kind of accessible.
Totally.
And that's probably why we still like when I hear that guitar riff at the beginning, I'm like, yep, okay, there's Father of Mine.
Are we ready for this? Yeah.
Am I going to cry right now?
Yeah, totally.
What's going to happen? All right, then the time is right for us to talk about what you believe is the standout track from this album. Eli, what have you chosen?
There's a lot to go from, and there's the two big like mega hits from this album. I Will Buy You a New Life and Father of Mine, and those I considered those. I considered So Much for the Afterglow, like the opening song, because it's awesome. Blah blah blah. I'm doing the thing again where I'm talking about all the things that I didn't choose.
We know.
Yeah, but I feel in order to be a perfect album, you have to stick the landing. And the song that I probably listen to that my Apple Music algorithm now does know that I'm going to listen to it from start to finish every time it comes on, like my Eli Mandel station or whatever, is Like a California King.
Awesome. All right, let's let them listen to just a taste of Like a California King. Here it is.